All right, everybody, I've put my predictions out there to the public, and I wanted to just make a video kind of breaking down some of the matchups and going through my bout by bout prediction. Now, I'm only doing this for the men, mostly because for the last 2 years in particular, 99% of my research has been in the men's category, and so it's what I know best. It's what I can really speak to with knowledge of pretty much all the fencers in this. So that's why I'm only doing a breakdown for the men. I'm also, just because I don't think you want to sit here forever, I'm just starting with the top 16. So if you see somebody and you're like, well, why isn't that person in there? Well, you can extrapolate, like my extreme hot take prediction here, that Zhang is going to beat Coke from Hungary. So I'm going to just start breaking these down from the top 16 onward. Okay, so let's start off with Zhang and Lamardo. I'll be totally honest in saying that this is one that I see Lamardo winning decisively. I think, they've matched up a few times. Zhang operates really well at a two-tempo distance, at least when he's in preparation. And Lamardo, on the other hand, is showing a little bit of fallibility when it comes to people who kind of pressure him more at close distance. It's just not where Zhang operates in preparation. I think Lamardo is going to win that one pretty decisively, in all honesty. We move on to Vismara Middleton. This is going to be a really, really thrilling bout. Vismara is mentally up and down. When he's on, he's on. But much like his Italian teammate Andrea Santarelli, he has extremes, right? He has really, really good days and then days where he just goes out in the 64, making some kind of boneheaded mistakes that make you say, what are you thinking, right? Now, the Italian style is really adjusting well to the French. This kind of pressure game that they're playing, not letting the French have the space to operate and set up preparation has been working really well for them. Like, in particular, if you want to see this in action, watch their team final from World Championships last year in Milan if you want to see just that Italian pressure game stifling the French. Now, that being said, Middleton has been on a really, really, really hot streak leading up to the Olympics. People are always like, well, so and so hasn't won every single event. Well, I don't think it's about the events that you win leading up to the Olympics. When you're hovering around the top 8, top 16 fairly consistently, that's where I think you're going to have a really good day in the Olympics. So I think this is going to be one of the closer bouts in the table of 16, but I'm going to pick Luigi Middleton over Vismara. Next, if there was any bout, and I mean any bout in this whole tableau, that I was uncertain about, it's Kanun and Kurbanov. To the point that I picked Kurbanov as my dark horse to win these Olympic Games. So you have two polar opposite styles here, right? You have Kanun, who really operates well on an offensive game. He also has a solid defensive game, and where he can push, kind of draw out his opponent's attack and do well on that front. And then you have Kurbanov, who is one of the most solid defensive fencers in international fencing. You don't have a lot of guys that can pull off the defensive game really well, but he's just an energizer bunny. He's a freak athlete. You see, watch his first step when he enters distance. It is so fast and so clean. And then, he can make these flicks over the guard that are always really crisp and often draws out his opponent. If you watch Kurbanov's highline parries, good luck getting out of that. Once he's got you in that 6, you're dead. So this is about, I could see being really, really close, to the point that it would not shock me if Kurbanov pulled an upset here over Kanun. What Kurbanov, I think, is going to have to do in this bout is apply pressure. Again, not letting Kanun set up those preparations, and he needs to be unrelenting around the guard is what I think Kurbanov needs to do here, and more drawing out Kanun as opposed to going for the attack, really leaning in on his defensive game more. I think he's going to win. Now, you talk about another thriller of a bout in the top 16, Wang Kano. If you've watched any of their bouts from the past, they're always neck and neck, but Wang seems to be coming out on top in that one for the most part. Wang is a very, very simple game. I think, kind of that tip-oriented the opponent kind of game. That was a little bit more of a thing that he inherited from Hugh Zilber's time in China. And, this is going to be a really, really close bout, but that's an upset that I'm picking there. I'm going to pick Wang over Kano. Next, another thriller, Burrell and Minobe. Those two have matched up many times in the past, and it is always a thriller. Minobe is one of the few fencers that I've ever seen that really makes Burrell hesitant to attack. He disrupts Burrell's preparation well. He makes him flinch. He's one of the few fencers I've seen successfully land toe touches on Burrell. And that's a bout I'm really looking forward to. I think of all the fencers that I've researched over the years, I have more of an appreciation for Minobe's game than any fencer I've ever watched. He is tactical genius, holds the lead really well. For a guy like him, 71% of his touches are resulting either in a double light or a single light. That is an outlier, by the way. I mean, he's just a freak. This is going to be a really, really good bout. Burrell has had trouble in the Olympics, right? Here you have one of the most established great fencers of all time. There's no doubt about it. One of the best to ever pick up an epee. He's had some kind of upsets in the Olympics, most recently with El Sayed in Tokyo in 2020, one that he approached a little bit too aggressively. But we're seeing in the last quad a much more restrained, patient Burrell. And he switched from this very, very boldly offensive fencer to more of a counter-offensive fencer. And I think that his restraint is actually what's going to take him far in this tournament, potentially, right? It's not the Yannick Burrell of old who, leading up to the Tokyo Olympics, averaged 9 seconds per touch, okay? And remember, average epee men's touch is taking about 17 seconds. So he was like almost half, the average. The guy was just barreling down the strip, playing this boldly offensive game. And then after Tokyo, where everything kind of did not go according to plan, he's been much more of a patient, restrained, counter-offensive fencer. That's going to go really, really well for him in these games. I'm going to pick Burrell narrowly over Minobe. Now, the next bout, this is going to be just a great one. You talk about two of the strongest on-blade fencers in Yamada and Diveroli. That's going to be a thriller. I'm really looking forward to that one. It was a bit of a coin flip for me. I just wasn't sure who to pick, but Yamada's been on a hot streak recently. He's getting hot at the right time, right before the games, and for me, I think he's being much more smart with how he enters distance, getting his opponents to do stupid things. Would not surprise me if Diveroli wins this one, but I'm narrowly picking Yamada on that one. For those of you who love a blade-heavy game, that's going to be a great bout. Freilich, Rodriguez. Wow, this is going to be a thriller, right? Freilich is right now on fire. You talk about the pressure game, right? He almost never retreats. Almost all the time you see right off the line, patient, calculated steps moving forward, swarming with his tip around the guard, slowly but surely backing his opponents towards the 2-meter zone, and just finding their blade really, really well. He's fencing with confidence right now. Rodriguez is at his best when he is kind of retreating, forcing his opponents to push, looking for that counterattack or kind of the counter-offensive actions when he's on the retreat. So stylistically, this is a really, really, really even matchup. Rodriguez also has a significant height advantage. He's a 6'8" lefty French gripper. Freilich is about 6'1", I'd say. Significant height, reach advantage. But Freilich is not somebody that rushes. He's not somebody that makes a lot of mistakes. So I don't see that one as one that is going to be. I could see it being close, but ultimately I pick Freilich there. But it'll be a good one. And stylistically, you talk about two guys that match up really well in terms of one's strengths and the other's weakness and vice versa. That's one. Bayard and Shikloshi. Shikloshi is how you pronounce his name, actually. That's another one that's going to be great. You talk about Bayard's style. He's lefty French gripper. And despite being a French gripper, is one of the strongest on-blade defensive fencers out there. He catches this inside four just amazingly, and if you watch his kind of technique as he does it, I mean the guard is almost like twisted almost all the way around like this when he does his four. Dude's a very, very smart fencer, patient, calculated. Shikloshi has been also on fire leading up to the games, right? Another guy who easily, if he ends up on the podium winning it all, would not surprise me, not in the slightest. Um, so that's going to be a good bout. I think ultimately Shikloshi is going to know when to go around that four of Bayard's, when not to go. I kind of like the offensive style of Shikloshi here, overcoming that of um, Bayard. So that'll be a good bout. All right, and so now we've talked about the 16. Let's talk about the 8. Lamardo Middleton. Again, Middleton is very much an offensive fencer. Ruben Lamardo is very much a counter-offensive defensive fencer. You're going to see Lamardo kind of pulling in the beginning of this bout, looking for attack and prep, looking to draw Middleton out. I think Middleton's going to go forward with very, very calculated steps, get inside of Lamardo's guard, probably start going for his leg, just not letting himself get inside of Lamardo's really good inside parries, accounting for that very still explosive flesh from Lamardo, but ultimately I like Middleton coming out on top there. We go to Kanun and Wang. I can't remember. I haven't personally watched any bouts of those two. I want to say that they have fenced at a fairly recent event, but for me, I'm just going with Kanun. I don't have a lot of insight into this one in terms of how they match up stylistically. I've never watched them fence. My gut's just saying Kanun. Sorry, I don't have a deeper analysis in that. Burrell, Yamada, this is always a great bout. I just, every time these guys fence, it's just such a beautiful thing. So, one of the only strategies for beating Burrell, and believe me, there's very few strategies for beating Burrell, is absorbing him. What do I mean by absorbing him, right? You draw Burrell out, right, and most of his attacks are going to be landing with gusto. I mean, the guy is explosive, he's powerful, he's smart, he's athletic. He combines every single element of a good fencer, right? But there's a way that you can draw him out, get the parry, kind of draw him in for infighting. And Yamada is just simply the best infighter in international fencing right now. The behind the head stuff, the pulling the arm back, coming in for the remise. He can do it all on the inside. And when he's fenced Burrell in the past and beat him, it's about absorption, drawing out Burrell, finding the blade, fighting him inside. When you're infighting with somebody, and their tip's right here, ideally you want to get inside and get your body past their tip, shoulder past the tip, finishing that way. This is going to be a really, really close bout. Ultimately, I like Burrell's restraint here. Going around Yamada's defense is part of this, but that's just going to be a thriller bout. I'm telling you, go watch some of these bouts of them in the past. There's some really, really great ones out there, worth your time to watch. Freilich Shikloshi. Again, this is a coin flip bout, right? I talked about some of the coin flip bouts earlier. This is certainly one of them. When they fenced earlier this season, it was 15-14. Really, really, really close. And I could just see this going the same way, right? With Freilich pushing as much as he does and creating pressure, Shikloshi's forte is very much in his counter-offensive game, especially when you get him back towards the 2 meter zone. I've always called Shikloshi more like an athletic Basarwian. And, when I think about his timing, especially when he starts getting pushed back towards the end of the strip, he just knows when to go. And, Freilich, part of his game, right, is he's shorter, so he has to make up. The shorter fencers are often kind of at 2-tempo distance. And with Freilich, I could see him kind of pushing towards the end, starting that first step, and Shikloshi going with these really well-timed attack and preparations. Freilich's going to have to, essentially step in, find a way to draw out Shikloshi, and then I could see Freilich working the blade well, because again, you talk about the guys that are able to push and create defense really well, stifle attack and prep. Freilich is one of those guys. I think he does that better than anybody right now. So I'm going to pick Freilich, but again, coin flip. It could go either way. It was 15-14 last time. Depending on who's hot this day, who isn't, who knows, right? And this takes us to the semifinal. We'll talk about the first one here, what I have between Middleton and Kanun. These two have matched up a few times. Kanun has had favorable outcomes, but again, Middleton is a little bit hotter right now than Kanun, so that's not one that I say with any degree of certainty. But for me, I think that Kanun is going to be able to play the pressure game a little bit more. When you take away Middleton's offense and his ability to create pressure, he doesn't have that same kind of strength that Kanun does, right? Again, the most lethal error that you can have on Kanun is retreating, giving him the space to prepare, operate, and set up his preparations. I think that's ultimately what Middleton's going to try to do, and I don't think that's going to work out well, right? This is going to be a pressure game. Whoever is exerting the pressure here and convince the other person to back up is probably going to be the winner. This is also going to be a very, very aggressive bout, right? I could see these guys averaging 8-9 seconds per touch, going after it, going for it, right? But we'll see. It's going to be a good bout one way or another. Now, Burrell and Freilich, another explosively good bout. When those two have fenced recently, Freilich has found a way, right, to create that pressure on Burrell, stifle Burrell's opportunities to attack and create space. Burrell, again, has been thriving in the counteroffensive game, but Freilich has been stifling that counteroffensive game of just about every fencer, right? It's the calculated steps moving forward that neutralizes the attack and prep. It's the way that Freilich disrupts preparation. It's the way that he just never retreats. He's in your face all the time, pushing, pushing, pushing. This is one that I could see Freilich winning. Not, I wouldn't say decisively, but, I could say something like 15-12 for Freilich. All right, and that brings us to the final of what I'm saying is going to be the final, at least, and that's Kanun and Freilich. Odds of this bout happening are pretty low. It's Epee. It's a coin flip. I have no idea, right? But here's my hot take. Okay, here's my hot take of the day, and that is that if this is the bout that happens, I could see this not only being in Freilich's favor, but being a pretty one-sided 15-9 bout. In terms of what Freilich does really well against Kanun's weaknesses, it's that pressure game that, again, I think that's part of the reason that I have Freilich here is he's playing that pressure game better than anyone right now. I think he's going to make Kanun's life hell, not let Kanun do anything that he wants, find the blade, draw him out, be ready for him. Absolute, in terms of what Freilich does really well and what Kanun doesn't do really well, I see this as a somewhat lopsided bout in terms of both of their things that they like to do, one versus the other. So for me, I'm picking Freilich there, and that would be pretty decisive for me, like 15-9, 15-10. And then going back to the bronze, Burrell and Middleton, my prediction is that they'll fence for the bronze. I think Burrell will have an opportunity there to, they fenced a couple times. I think it was the Cairo Grand Prix final a couple years ago that they fenced, and I just found it interesting watching that when they fenced, Burrell refused to even pass his zone on guard line, right? It was constantly on the retreat, making Middleton come to him, and that seemed to work really well for him. Middleton started recouping some of that deficit later on in that bout, but when those two have fenced and Burrell is pulling and playing that counter-offensive game, really hard to bet against him. So I would pick Burrell there, 15-10 overall. This is a bracket, guys, that I was talking to one of my friends, former world champion, and he said that this is the strongest bracket that he has ever seen, Olympic bracket, top to bottom. It's hard to argue with that. Just look at some of the talent here. I mean, yeah, look at some of the talent here in the 32, right? I unhid this column. You have Cook, world champ. My hot take is Zhang is going to take him out early, right? That's a dirty hot take, I know. Andrasty took silver in Bern last year. Really, really solid fencer. I have him going out of the 32. Tristan Toulon, guy who took silver at European Championships. Really good fencer. I could go top to bottom here. Baran won a Grand Prix last year at the age of 41. I think he's the oldest fencer in the Olympics, right? He could go really, really far. I mean, just the guys that are in the 32 that I have losing are really solid fencers. So looking at this is just going to be amazing epee fencing, especially in the early rounds. Absolutely worth your time to VPN over to Europe and be able to watch it because I think we're going to have trouble getting Eurosport over here. But absolutely worth your time to find a way to watch this. I'm really, really excited. I wish everybody luck and look forward to some good fencing.